Are you okay, Tolly?
Oh, Hashem, how's your brother?
You look like you're very sunburnt. How did you manage to get sunburnt today?
On the beach today, it was nice weather.
That's good.
Oh, Hashem.
Right. Moishe is back. So maybe later you can sort out. Okay. I once mentioned, somebody told me that they end up being in the Succa, couldn't sleep all night because of the lights over. It's very good to remember that the dafim that goes in order. We've got from daf lamed to lamed base is all about the lulav. Then we have a daf, then a few about esrog. Lamed to lamed base, if you were to spell out the letters, lamed base is lulav without a vav. So if you ever want to remember which daf, which sugya is a lulav without a vav. Rashi asks the question, like, why do we have to have 4 sugyas? Lulav, hadassim, avavas, nesuk. Some of them are almost exactly the same. For example, let me give you one which is exactly the same, but all 4. Top is cut off. Very good. Another one. One which you should have said. Dry. Dry is the main one. Dry is the main one, which is the 4 by all the same. So why do we have to have 4 mishnahs? Why can't you just have 1 mishnah and tell us all? What's the answer?
Children ask questions. Draw a comparison.
Rashi tells us that each one has unique features. For example, Tziniah Ba'azam, we learned yesterday, is a lulav which doesn't have good leaves. That's only by lulav. Hadassim is the only one that has berries. Avavas is the only one that's got a strange species called saftafon. Esrog is the only one which can be eaten. So each time you've always got reasons why each one's separate. So that's the 4 sugyas. So lulav starts the first one. So yesterday we started already a bit with the hadas, and we're up to daf lamed base with base, 4 lines from the bottom. If most of the leaves have fallen off, with the boy mute and only a minority of remaining kosher. With that, as long as you've still got the plating is the triple fold leaves. And that's very difficult. It says, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. Oh, gufa kasha, you're contradicting yourself. Almost love kosher. And most of these fall off. And the honey leaves are done every step 3. So majority of 3 is 2. So how much have you got left? 1. As long as you've got 3-fold. Give the nosu tray. Obviously, you're never going to have 3 left if 2 fell off. Top of Lamed Gimel Odalef, the Egyptian Adas. The kaini shivo bechadkino. There's 7 at every stalk. The chinosi arbo poshlu tlosim, and 4 fall off. You still got 3 left. So we talk about a particular kind of adas which has 7 leaves coming out of every place. 4 fall off. You've still got 3 left, and therefore it's okay. This halacha, most of the leaves falling off. What is the halacha therefore? That only if a minority of the leaves fall off, it's okay. If the majority fall off, it's no good. And this particular halacha is perhaps one of the most intricate, or certainly one of the most intricate halachas in Hadas. I've looked at it before. It means like this. Bechava paskans that you should have an Hadas which has got 12 thumbs of 3 by 3. This is the picture, the Hadas of Mechaba. 12 thumbs. Why 12 thumbs? That's 3 tefachim. Or 4 thumbs to every tefach. Do you remember? 4 of these, 6 of these, and 5 of these in every tefach. Remember that? Yes, 6 of these, 4 of these, and 5 of these in every tefach. Right? So 12 thumbs, 4 thumbs is 3 tefach. The height of that. I'm talking about the width of the finger. Width, 6 of these widths, 5 of these, and 4 of these come to a tefach. Okay. Now, I had that in the actually. Kitzah. What happens is you've got to have 12 thumbs of 3 by 3. Mechaber says that you should make sure to have lechatchila all of the leaves there. B'di'evet, it's enough if most of the leaves are off. So here you've got a small picture. It's quite detailed. So here it is. Here. But what you've got is you've got a das which is 12 thumbs long. Most of them there, can you see the first 7? And the bottom doesn't have 3 by 3. So this, the Mishnah Berurah says, is but diavad, it's okay. Right. There are many, many, many shaylas. I just come up with a couple. Can you include the stalk where there's no leaves in the 12 agudlim to count it? Stalk without leaves, is that counted as part of the 12 or not? For example, let's say you've got 11, which is good, and then another thumb without anything. But it's part of the stalk, is that counted or not? That's machlokas of the poskim, a big shayla comment. Now, another, Mishnah Berurah himself says he doesn't know the answer to this. He says, Succa. Like this, if you've got 7 and 5, it's okay. Why if 7 and 5 is it okay? Because the majority is on. What happens if across the entire hadas, you've got one leaf that falls off of all the 3? So you've got 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. You could argue you've got the majority on. Since you've got the majority on, it is okay. Or you could argue, nowhere do you have 3. The entire thing is missing any 3. There's no 3s anywhere. And therefore it's possible. So Mishnah Berurah himself is specific about it. That is another shayla. There's one more shayla, which is the most famous perhaps of them all. It's like this. In order for a das to be kosher, it has to have 3, 3, 3, 3. The 3 have to be on the same level. How much of the same level do they have to be? Do they have to be literally on the same level? 3 leaves come out. If you look very carefully, many adasim do not go for the exact same level. So here we have the famous line, which is called the chut hamakif. Chut hamakif. If a string would encircle all 3, what they do is like this. The actual leaf, when it attaches to the branch, takes about 2 millimeters, right? Because there's a certain area which does. If one within the 2 millimeters, all 3, that means they all overlap within those 2 millimeters, that's okay, because one string could actually touch all 3 at being at the same level. So if one's a bit lower, means this is the 2 millimeters of where the leaf touches the branch, and one's a bit higher, but since they overlap, it's okay. There's machlikas of Rashi Shimon Zaman. What would happen if one leaf comes out here, one leaf comes out a tiny bit lower, and one comes off a tiny bit lower than that? The top and the lower one do not overlap, but the middle one does overlap. And Rashi says it's no good. These are very intricate things. These are halachas we have to be aware of what's called chut hamakif. Here they try and show you a chut hamakif. And you see you've got the string which goes through all 3, and if you look very carefully, you can see that it touches all 3. Okay, these are the shaylas which we're discussing. This, it's not easy. What happens is, for example, what do you say?
How many of them have to be like that?
Well, so we said, 12 thumbs worth, that's 3 tvachim, but the majority.
Because if one of them is like that,
Yes.
that's not good.
That's,
Still got 1, 3. but you all rest.
no, because there's no good, because it has to be, no, that won't be good. If you've got 1, 3, then you've got 2, 2, 2s. That's Mishnah Berurah himself says. What's that loch if you've got 2s and then 1s? It could be there, here it's worse, because Mishnah Berurah is talking about when the leaf fell off. Here it's when it grows in a different manner, it could be a completely no good hadas.
When you buy a dust, you check that.
Yeah. Right, so if they do check the most hadasim, it says on it's a hechsher, and it says something in the Senate, roiv of it has got mukaf, or some that say that all of it is, some say roiv comes from Chaim Noah. If it's got a hechsher, somebody, I don't know if you can rely, they're packing tens of thousands of boxes. Obviously, to always buy 6 hadasim. Buy 6 hadasim. Because what happens is every so often on Succa, a leaf can fall off, and it's very hard to then get another one. And also, when you're putting the hadasim inside, sometimes they fall off. Okay, we'll come to it more maybe another time. But the Isaac more paskins that as long as you've got 3, 3, 3, that is okay. That's it. Says in Bodan Gogus tiny small point. Omar by Shmami no can prove from this more Hayasa mitzvah the Egyptian das kosher shana. It's kosher for Sukkos. But no pshita, why should it be possible? It has got a name which is added to it. What's a good name? Secondary name. Lo miskasha. It's shumi kosher because it's not called hadas. It's called Egyptian hadas. It's always the Torah says it's always any kind of any kind of hadas is okay, and therefore it doesn't matter if it's got an Egyptian hadas or a different name of hadas. Any hadas, as long as it's called hadas, even if it's got a secondary name, it's okay. If most of the leaves are dry, if it's got 3 leaves on every single one of the stalks which are not dry, it is kosher. It has to be the 3 highest leaves. Why does it have to be the 3 highest leaves? In order that it should be hodor. Now it's interesting, dry is very, very, very rare. The Mechaber talks about the case where it is so dry that it crumbles. And he says, even that, he says, is not clearly dry. Dry has to be that it is white. The leaf has actually turned white. What is a shaila is the couple of shailas is like this, is what happens if the stalk has become very dry. The Mishmur says that the majority of the poskim say that the din of dryness only exists on the leaves, not on the stalk. The stalk doesn't matter if it gets dry. There are those who are machmir on the stalk as well. Mishmur also points out that this din that it has to be that the top 3 leaves mustn't be dry is only a din in Yovish. When it comes to the triple 3, even if it's a lower, it says okay. Mishmur says the reason is because it comes to Yovish, if the top is dry, lower is moist, it's off-putting. When it comes to having the triple 3, that doesn't matter if it's a lower because that doesn't disturb hodar as much. It says, well, Niktam Moishe, if the top got cut off, all the Mishavur and others all point out that when we say the top cut off, it doesn't mean that the leaves got cut off. It means that the stalk got cut off. And the first in fact point out that even if many of the leaves have been cut halfway through, that is fine. As long as the stalk has been cut, it is okay. So Niktam Moishe, if the top got cut off, also by Tmo, and it started growing and it grew a bud, kosher. Rashi tells us that even after a plant's been cut off a tree, it can still grow a little bit. Sometimes you have roses, very white roses, and you come and bring them for Shabbos, they're closed, and a week later they're already open. Now it's in water. Okay, so hadas as well can happen the same thing. So you cut off the top of the hadas, put it in water, and what happens is it now produced a new growth where it got cut off. So then it is kosher. If what happened was it got cut off before Yom Tov, and on Yom Tov itself, during Yom Tov, it grew a bud. It grew something on the top where it got cut off. What's the tip? And the shaila is, the halacha is, regarding korbanos, there's a concept of dichui. Second, this thing, only right, sorry. There is such thing as dichui. What is dichui? Dichui means that if a korban for some reason became no good, then even if afterwards it became good again, you cannot use that korban. We had one example that came up dozens of times in Yuma, and somebody should tell me what was the example in Yuma. Is? Hurt his lip? No.
It was also died and he came back.
He
got lost and then came back, and you already chose another one.
No, even better. You're 50%. You can have 50% of a cup of hot water. No, but Salah, what is it? Oh, I thought you were coming to tell me the answer. No, where did we have it? Dichui by a korban on which came up again and again in Yuma. What happened was you separated 2 goats, one to throw off the cliff and one to bring inside the Beis Hamikdash. Very good. If let's say the one to go off the cliff dropped down dead, so you can't say, and then you get another one, you get a replacement for it. You can't say, well, that one to that Beis Hamikdash, so that's okay. Why is that okay? Nothing happened to that. No, because let's say at 2:00 the one off the cliff died and it hasn't yet been sent off the cliff, and at 2:30 you found the replacement. So between 2 and 2:30, the Soil Hashem did not have a twin and he didn't have a partner. So between 2 and 2:30 was no good. If at 2:30 it becomes good, what do you have to do? You have to get a whole new one. Why? Yesh dichui, the halach is by korbanos we hold of dichui. The question which comes up many times in Shas is that halacha of dichui applied to other things or not? And this question we're going to discuss it again and again today. Is there such thing as dichui? What was the story over here? Yom Tov came in and I was looking at my Adas, and one of my children cut off with a pair of scissors the top of the Adas. At that stage, was the Adas good? No. Then at 2 hours later, I'm very excited. It grew a bud. Wow.
It wasn't Yom Tov.
No, it grew the bud on Yom Tov.
No, when you held.
When he cut it on Yom Tov. Like, it doesn't matter, he cut it before Yom Tov, but when Yom Tov came in, it was still cut. So it's very good what you're saying, but it's very, very important. Rashi's at pains to point this out. That dichui doesn't exist unless there's a reason for it to be kosher. Let's say a week before you Succa, it got cut off. And 5 days before Succa, it grew a bud. Would that be dichui or not? No, that would not be dichui. Why would that not be dichui? Because it's not suitable. Nobody's thinking about Succos at this stage. It's only if it got cut off and on Yom Tov it was no good. And then halfway through Yom Tov, suddenly it grew a bud. That is the question, do we say dichui or not? Do we say when Yom Tov came in, this was not a good adas? And now you want to make it good, that's no good. It's been rejected. Once it's been rejected, it cannot be taken back. Well, no. The concept of rejection exists by korbanos, it doesn't exist by mitzvahs. So this is what the shaila of our papa was. So the Gemara says, we can prove it. There's a Mishnah. The halacha is if you shecht a bird or a chayil, what do you have to do? You have to kiss adam, cover the blood. Not a mitzvah that I've done very often. You've probably done it many times, no? Not many times. You've done it. Shechtim do it. I've only had it twice in my life. Kiss adam. It's not very often that you do kiss adam. When do you have a chance? Because my the halacha is kiso with iskala. If you covered it and then the wind, let's say you covered it with some soil and the wind blew it away. You do not need to do it again. You've done your job. If the wind covered it, that means the wind blew something over the blood, then you do need to cover it. And the Gemara doesn't understand that. How can you cover something which is already covered? The wind covered it. Okay, you never got to do your mitzvah, but why is there to cover? That means the wind covered it. Then the wind blew it away. Then you have to cover it. But if the wind covered it and never uncovered it, you do not need to cover it. There's nothing to cover. We asked the question, that means at 9 o'clock I shecht my chicken. And then I'm about to cover the blood, and suddenly a leaf falls down from a tree, a massive tree, like one of these oak leaves, very, very big leaves, covers the blood. So what happens? I've lost my mitzvah. I lost my mitzvah, nothing I can do about it. At 9:30, a wind came and blew away the leaf. So now I've got my mitzvah. How can that be? That mitzvah was rejected. There's no such thing as dichui by mitzvahs. So we see the concept of rejection exists only by korbanos, not by mitzvahs. And therefore, since the concept of rejection does not exist by mitzvahs, what was Yomi asking when he said, if a bud grew on sukkahs, am I allowed to use it or not? And what was Yomi's question? Is there such thing as rejection or not? Says the more, we weren't sure what Papa meant. He knew for certain there's no dichet mitzvahs. Meaning like this, that we've got no proof from our Papa. Our Papa said that if a leaf fell on it and then afterwards wind blew it away, I've got a mitzvah to cover it again. Why? Because there's no such thing as a mitzvah being rejected. And if I'm still obligated to cover it, but that could be a chumrah. Could be our Papa wasn't really sure if there's such thing as dichet mitzvahs. He was being machmir that you have to do it. But in a case where it's a kula, for example, in our case, where you're relying on a hadas, which when Yom Tov came in, it was no good, and you're going to be makel to use it on them halfway through Yom Tov because a bud grew on it, maybe you won't agree. So the Gemara says you don't know for certain that Papa was just being machmir when he said cover it again after the leaf's blown away. You've got no right that it's also the kula. So, what? There's no point, it's already been covered. Once it's been covered, see the mitzvah of Kiss Adam is being done. There's no mitzvah to uncover it, to cover it. Otherwise, there are 100 people doing Kiss Adam. You cover it and then I uncover it, we don't do that. Yeah, meant to do it so. We can do it with anything. You can also do it with leaves. Now, the mice is very interesting. The Mishmur himself asks it that what's the halacha? The Gemara says take, the Gemara does not pass them. The Gemara does not pass them. Can you imagine? The Gemara does not pass them what you should do. But the Rishonim paskin lekula. It's very interesting. The Rishonim will say that if a leaf grew, a bud grew on the top of it on Yom Tov, it is okay. And the question is why? Why is it okay? Another case would be, let's say, for example, when Yom Tov came in, the adasim were full of berries, and we said if the majority is berries, what's the halacha? It's possible. And then let's say on Yom Tov they fell off. That would be the same question. Do we say rejection or not? Says the Mechaba, it is okay. Why? The Gemara says we're not sure. Teiku, what's Teiku mean? It's Rosh Tevis, Tishbi, Yataretz, Kushus, Boys. And your Navi will answer all questions. So if the Gemara doesn't know, how did the Rishonim know? So Lemaisa, everybody comes up with his own answer. We said Gon has an answer, the Beisosef has an answer. Each one, how could it be that the Rishonim don't say an answer? They don't say, oh. So I just say like this, that when we come to the Gemara, we will see later the Gemara tells us that there's a worse kind of Dichui. Even worse is something that was suitable on Yom Tov. That means when Yom Tov came in and became suitable, it was suitable. Then in the middle of Yom Tov, it became not suitable. And then afterwards, it became suitable again. That's even worse. And the Gemara says that's also a Shaila. The Gemara says, since that's a Shaila, and that's a much worse case, obviously the other case where it was not Voyu, and then it became Voyu, is okay. Okay, I see it's more complicated than expected. The Maisa, we passed in the Kula. If ever would come up a question of Dichui by Mitzvah, we passed them. Okay. So we're going to discuss if the Machloek, the question of Dichui by Mitzvah is Machloek Sanoi. Mishnah tells us that if there's berries on the Hadas, you're not allowed to use it. Why not allowed to use it? Anybody remember? It's not hard. It's not beautiful. Why is it not beautiful, by the way? What's the lack of beauty of having berries on your Hadas? We'll see that berries is, let's say, red, purple, whatever color they are. The Hadas is meant to be green. So it looks speckled, or it looks the color, it ruins the color. Do you ever see Hadas with berries, Sean?
No.
I've never seen. You've seen Hadas with no. Ma'isa, it's very interesting, is that the Yerushalmi tells us that there's a different reason why not, because the Torah says anaf ate of us. Anaf, what's the translation of anaf? Is a branch, not a fruit. So if it's got berries on, you pick up fruit, not branches. The nafkamina would be if the berries are green. If the berries are green, according to our Gemara, which says the problem is because it doesn't look nice, it won't spoil it because green berries doesn't take away the color. According to the Yerushalmi, the problem is that it's a fruit, it would still be possible. And what's fascinating is, no, the Yerushalmi holds that if you're taking one full of berries, you actually pick up fruit. If you pick up a stalk with an orange at the bottom, somebody will say to you, what are you carrying? You're carrying an orange, you're not carrying a stalk. So if there's lots of berries on it, people will say you're picking up berries, not picking up a branch. And therefore, if you're carrying green berries. And what's very interesting is that all the poskim are meikol kimat. Most of the poskim say green berries is okay because it doesn't spoil the color, ignoring the Yerushalmi. Why? Because that Bavli and Yerushalmi, we paskan like the Bavli. It is interesting that if one wants to be, as you say, Sean points out that it's never happened. But if there would be green berries, so according to Bavli, it'd be okay. It's a lot to say. But my Sinitsky was going to say a shaila that you're not allowed to take them off in Yom Tov. Why not allowed to take them off in Yom Tov? Anybody know? Tikkun Mona. No, it's not Tzira. Why is it not Kosa? Because it's already plucked. It's only Tikkun Mona. It's only Tikkun Mona. It's only Tikkun Mona. So therefore, you're not allowed to do it in Yom Tov. What? It's not boy. No, because I wouldn't say it's mixed. There's a very interesting shaila which the boy himself and others discuss. Is it the Issa D'Oraisa? Is it really like building something? Or is it Issa D'Rabbanan because it's like fixing something? You can't call that fixing a chair. Nafkamina was B.
Because you're making it possible to cross.
Yeah, but the shaila is, it's not like building a chair where you're creating a new thing. You're right that from a spiritual dimension, you've created a new thing. And Nafkamina would be, are you allowed to ask a goy to pull up the berries? If it's only D'Rabbanan, we have a special halacha in Simon Shulchan Ches that tells us the shvus is mutter b'mokim mitzvah. Whenever you've got a double D'Rabbanan out to for a mitzvah, it comes up quite a lot, this halacha, shvus b'mokim mitzvah. Let's say on Shabbos, the Friday night in the winter, it's dark in Beis Yisrael. Somebody forgot to turn the lights on, right? So according to many persons, turn the lights on is D'Rabbanan, especially these lights. It should not be your lights. It's not your fire. So you could ask a goy to turn the lights on. More than people should be able to daven in Beis Yisrael. It's a shvus b'mokim mitzvah. Okay. The Maisa, that'll be a shaila. You're allowed to ask a goy to pluck the berries, depending if plucking berries is the Raisa or D'Rabbanan. Now, what happens if somebody should not have plucked the berries and he did it? Well, the machlokes tanoim if the hadas is kosher or not. Leimik tanoim. Over velik danon. Pasol divrei Rezvan Sadik. Rezvan Sadik says pasol. V'chomim machshim. Now, this is a gemara. It's a bit of a cheshbon gemara. Just say it out. There are three ways to understand what is the machlokes. The gemara suggests one of them is, what would one of them be? Dichui, very good. If the problem is because it was rejected, If you pluck them on Yom Tov, the first half of Yom Tov, you couldn't use it. The second half of Yom Tov, you plucked them, you can use it. So it's a question of Dichui. That would be the one explanation, which would make it very nice. The question of Dichui by mitzvahs is Machlokes Tanoim, which is very exciting. But there's two other ways to understand it. And there are two other ways to do with the problem of Tasavim and also. Very briefly, we had this by Succa. We have to explain this again. If you've tied up all the Avanim together, and then you pluck the berries, what have you gone and done? When you tied up the Avanim, it wasn't kosher. Then you pluck the berries. It's Tasavim and Issa. You're making it in the wrong way order. When it wasn't ready, suddenly you made it in a different way. You made it kosher. There will be two reasons why it's not Tasavim and Issa. Either the whole halach of Tasavim and Issa only exists by Sukkah and not by Avanim, which if that's the case, we have no problem. Or if there's no din to tie it up. Now, anybody can chap this point. It's a very important point. If there's no mitzvah to tie it up, there's no problem with Tasavim and Issa. Does anybody understand why? Why would it not be?
Yeah, because this is just to have a way around you.
Very good. That's it. If there's no mitzvah to tie it up, and you tied up the full minim, and then you pluck the berries, you've not done Tasavim and Issa. Because tying it up has not done anything to it if you need to tie it. And you tied it up while it had berries. And afterwards you took off the berries, so you can argue you did Tasavim and Issa, because when you tied it up, it had berries and now it's not. If you don't need to tie it up, you don't need eget, so what have you lost by taking the berries off afterwards? It's like you took the berries off before, you've not done anything different. The Brisa brought the machlokes if you pluck them on Yom Tov. The Gemara suggests that the reason is, machlokes is Dichui or ein Dichui. And the Gemara rejects it, and there could be two different arguments. Either it could be an argument of Tasavim and Issa. That means, is there a problem of plucking the berries? Or the machlokes is, do you need to tie it up? And if you don't need to tie it up, then there is no problem with Tasavim and Issa. So it's quite, there's three different ways, and the Gemara suggests goes through all three. So what? In the beginning, the Gemara thought the Kulam and Lulav and Tzarech Eged, you do not need to tie it up. If you do need to tie it up, only by Sukkah there's a problem Tasavim and Issa, not by Lulav. And therefore, what could the argument be? If there's no problem Tasavim and Issa, and there's no problem tying it up, so what could the problem be? The reason why it's no good is because half of Yom Tov was no good because it was rejected. And even though later you pluck the berries, it's too late. And one who says it's kosher, holds there's no such thing as rejecting a mitzvah. Look, the everybody says there's no such thing as tichva mitzvahs. The question is, do we learn that from Sukkah? We learn Lulav from Sukkah, just like by Sukkah there's a problem Tasavim and Issa, also by Lulav there's a problem Tasavim and Issa. If you would hold that you need to tie it up, you would have the problem of Sukkah, which is Tasavim and Issa. The Tanakh holds whether you tie it, whether you don't tie it, it's kosher. If it's tied, it is kosher. If it's not tied, it's kosher. So that's the machlokes. You need to tie it up. And if you don't need to tie it up, there's no problem of plucking the berries later. If you do need to tie it up, there is a problem. So that's the machlokes. Now the Gemara says very briefly, what's the machlokes? Do you need to tie it or not? Good, just like they had to be tied up, Afkana good. But they don't hold this, they don't hold they need to tie it. Says, you should tie it. If you didn't tie it, kosher, money, who is that? You have to tie it up. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, why is it kosher if you didn't tie it up? If it's the Chachamim, my mitzvah covered, which mitzvah is it to tie it up? So you've got actually over here the halacha. If somebody will say to you, we pass it's a mitzvah to tie it up at the end, if you don't tie it up, it's kosher. Who do we pass like? The Chachamim, not like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds you need to tie it up, and if you don't tie it up, it's possible. The Chachamim hold it's only the chatchila to tie it up, because of Zekini and there you don't have to tie it up. And regarding the plucking of the berries, what do you say?
You can't pluck the berries off.
Very good. You can pluck the berries. Why? Because they're potassium also. You would not be allowed to for a different problem of fixing nadas. But you would be, it wouldn't be a problem to ask also. Let's say they fell off themselves, or let's say a goy did it, it wouldn't be a problem to ask also because there's no mitzvah to tie it up as you correctly said. Or you should know from a woman. If it's got too many berries, it's no good. Our great Rebbe said it, which was Rav. Hashem should help him. Like you say, Zech or Shlita, or should be well. Hashem should look after Rav. Lo yishanu mokim echad. If you've got berries scattered everywhere, even if they're the majority, it is kosher. Why would it be kosher? Because when you've got a lot of berries in one place, so it loses, you think you're taking a green, it's not, it's a red thing, it's full of red berries. If it's all scattered, it's okay. Amalei Rava, so Rava disagrees. Top of Lamed Gimel Lamed base. Shnaim Ushloshim Mekumis have a menumo apostle. On the contrary, by having it scattered everywhere, it looks like it's dotted. You really can't tell its color. If there's more berries than leaves, it's possible. Only if they're black. If it's green, it doesn't matter. It's part of the adas, it's the same color. The same halacha as black. If you've ever got a thicker cloth which is black, the halacha is that it is tummy. The reason is because black is just red, which has become discolored. So too, black berries are really red berries, and therefore both would be no good. So if you've got black berries or red berries, it is no good, unless they're a minority. If it's a majority of if there's more berries than things, it is possible. And it's quite a lot of it in the Shulchan Aruch, but since Shulchan tells us that doesn't really happen, we will not discuss all these questions. In miaton kosher, if you take off the berries, it is kosher. Says the Gemara, "Dematinu emas." When did you take off the berries? Before you even tied it up, you took off the berries. Pshita. What's the question? Why should it be no good? The berries are not there. Why should you need a mishnah to tell me that if you take off the berries, it's not okay? Obviously, after you tied it up. That is the problem of dichri. As Ben said before, unless something is suitable, there's no such thing as dichri. So over here, we're obviously talking about a situation where first you tied it up, so now it was suitable to use as adas, and then you took off the berries. But the problem is that's dichri mikol. Is that there's no such problem as rejection. Because sova eged azmona ba'almahu, azmona ba'almalav klum. This Tana holds that tying it up is not make it into an Abba Minu set. All it does is it prepares it, it makes it, enhances it. So therefore, you can't prove that there's no such thing as rejection. Because the fact that you've tied it up hasn't drastically changed it, and since it hasn't drastically changed it, so therefore it's not considered prepared in order for it to be considered rejected. You're not allowed to take it off a Yom Tov. The same topic. If you did take them off, my kosher, it is kosher. So if you took it off, it's kosher. There's a big question. Why is it kosher? Why is it not a mitzvah habo ba'aveiro? This is a very big question. Why isn't there a problem of mitzvah habo ba'aveiro if you pluck the berries on Yom Tov? Anybody want to suggest an answer?
It's removing a problem, not creating a mitzvah.
Well, if you steal a lulav, okay, let's say this.
That gives you the lulav. You've got that already. It's got a problem.
Just a second. No, I don't think so. It's about Aveiro. Well, let me just see. I just saw something just talking about it. So it's why is it not a mitzvah Aveiro? I don't understand. What are you saying? You're saying because
A lot of it is locked to an electronic lock.
Very, very good. Yes, somebody says that. Somebody compares it to bringing hadas from out of the tchum. But the halacha is, it's not, even though you did an aveira, it's not mitzvah ba'aveira, because it's just to make it technically possible. Shaykh over here, that's very good. You said a very nice example. To hear what his example is, it's brought down the halacha list. Let's say you've got a lulav in the room. You break down the door to get in, and break down the door, you turn on the light to find the lulav. The halacha is not called mitzvah ba'aveira. Why is it mitzvah ba'aveira? Because even though you did an aveira, the aveira was just to get you to the mitzvah. The mitzvah is not of. There's another answer. I just can't face. I can't find it. I just saw it like 20 minutes ago.
It's over there to do it at the same time.
Oh, right.
It's not the same. When you steal it.
Very good. Yeah. Because it's not the same time. When you shake your lulav, which is stolen, at the time that you're shaking it, you're stealing it. Therefore, it's mitzvah at the same time. Right. But over here, it's not the same time. Since it's not the same time, so therefore, right. Very good. Okay, so those are the two main answers. Right. So what answers the Shah Melech says you answer? The Shah Melech says the answer is like take it out of the Tchum, where you just prepared to get the mitzvah. Another reason is because it's not the same time. The Aveh was done earlier, the mitzvah is done late. Okay. No, because holding on to the lulav, that itself is an Aveh. Why have you not given the lulav back? That's the Aveh. That means keeping the lulav in your possession is the Aveh. It is the same time. Okay. It says, well, the Ashcho Amos, when did it get black? That we talk about, we took it off in Yom Tov. We took it off yesterday. That's not a problem of rejection. That means when Yom Tov came in at 6 o'clock in the evening, at 6 o'clock in the evening, the berries were black, so therefore the Hadas was no good. And then what happens is on Yom Tov you took them off, so you see there's no problem of rejection. What happened was like this: at 6 o'clock in the evening, when Yom Tov came in, there were not black berries, there were green berries. Green berries is okay. The next morning you wake up, they became black. So now they're no good. At 12 o'clock, you couldn't resist. You want to so much shake the album and then you pluck the berries. So that's even worse. That's something that was seen and then rejected can become good again. Look. That it was seen and then that means that it was rejected when Yom Tov came in and then became suitable on Yom Tov. You're right, that's okay. But suitable, then rejected, then suitable, that you've got no proof. Why is that? Because when something was suitable and it changed status twice in Yom Tov, it's much worse. Why is that worse? Because the more suitable it was, the greater the rejection is afterwards. So therefore, when there was blackberries when Yom Tov came in, so it was not really suitable. So then I got it fixed, it's okay. So therefore, it wasn't properly rejected. But when Yom Tov came in, it was green berries, which is okay. And then later in the day became blackberries, and then I took it off. That was suitable, then rejected and suitable. That's much worse. And now you've got no proof. So no, you're allowed to. How can you take it off? You're fixing it. What happened was you got hungry, and you see the hadas, so you decide to pluck the berries to eat them. Rabbi Shimon he holds like his father. This is go to Shimon Echai's cave. This is Rabbi and Shimon Echai that both went into the cave together. So he heard his father holding that Dover Shin Miskavans, an unintentional act as mutter. So also over here, since you pluck the berries for what purpose? To eat them. So therefore you weren't really trying to fix the hadas. So Dover Shin Miskavan is mutter. That let's say, for example, you want to play with the head of a chicken, or your child wants to. So you cut off the head of a chicken. Now you're not allowed to cut off the head of a chicken. Why not allowed to? You're kidding, sheikhet. So you could say, I don't mean it. It's Dover Shenim Iskavan. My intention is that you should have something to play with. The halach is say of a murder of Shimon exists sick ratio when you cut off the head. Will it not die? Of course it will die. Something which is 100% certain that it's going to happen, you cannot call it a Dover Shenim Iskavan. You can't call it an unintentional consequence of an act. That is the act. So when you cut off the head of a chicken, of course it's going to be a problem. Says the what? Here. You've got two hadas. It means you've got two sets of hadas. And one set of hadas has berries. And you are hungry. So what you do is you pluck the berries. And you are not doing an aveh of fixing the hadas. Why? Because Dover Shin is covered. Oh, it's psikvesha. The translation of psikvesha means it's a definite act of fixing. And it's not a definite act of fixing. Why is it not a definite act of fixing? Because you might not use this hadas. You might use the other set of hadas. So it's not psikvesha. This one line of Gemara produces a very lot of lumdus over here. Why is it not a definite act of fixing? Let's ask you the following question. Imagine you've got two chairs in your house. One of them broken and one of them fixed. Are you allowed to fix the broken chair and say, well, it's not psik ratio, get fixed because I'm doing a fixing because I've got the other chair to sit on? Of course not, because you're doing an act of fixing. So over here with the hadas, you are doing an act of fixing. The fact that you've got the option to use another hadas, what difference does that make? The Aruch, which is brought down in Shabbos, says that this halach, that psik ratio, that Shimon holds that psik ratio is no good. Again, Shimon holds is if I pull a bench and it makes grooves in the ground. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's asa. According to Shimon, it's okay. Thomas was coming as mutter. We passed, by the way, like who? Shimon, and it's okay. Here on Rabbi and Rav said if it's a psik reisha, meaning that if it's definitely going to happen, then Shimon says it's no good. It says the Oruch, this din of psik reisha is only if it's nichle, if you want it. If you don't want it, it is okay. And this, I'm not going to paskin. I don't never say psik just bring up points. The big problem is sometimes you go on holiday, Tali Cheski, we go on holiday, remember, you have to take the lights out of the fridge. That's the first thing I always do. I go on holidays, take out the lights from the fridge if you're going to be there for Shabbos. And listen, we had even a sensor, so I had to was quite a business to make sure that all the lights and sensors are all off. Now, let's say you by mistake didn't. Now, opening the fridge door, do you want the light to go on? Many hold it's a dovish in the miskav. They say light in the window. It's a dovish in the miskav. You don't really care. The problem is, it's a psik reisha. Says the Oruch, but if you don't want it, says a psik reisha de lo nichele, and then it's a heta. I'm not passing about the fridge, and please make sure to set the lights. But there is a mokim. That's one answer. There are others that say that the Gemara over here means something completely different. This is not because it's a dovish in the miskav de lo nichele. It's a different answer. The answer is over here is that it's not a dovish in the miskav. It's not tikkun. It's nothing. It's not like fixing a chair. Where fixing a chair inherently is an act of a malach. Eating the berries is not a malacha. You're just eating the berries. The only reason why it's called fixing is because you need the hadas for Yom Tov. Since you don't need the hadas, you're not doing a malacha at all. And according to that, it's nothing to do with Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda. Even Rabbi Yehuda would say it's mutter because you're not actually fixing anything. It's not. There's a difference between fixing an hadas and fixing a chair. When you're doing a chair, you're actually doing something. Chair wasn't there. Now you fix the chair. You pull the table, now there's grooves in the floor. Now that we're talking about a second set of hadasim, what you're doing is actually not a malacha at all. Since it's not a malacha, therefore it's not. No, you're not. Because since you don't need the hadas for the mitzvah, but the point is, since the difference between kosher and not kosher make no difference to you, like, let's for example, I eat a bunch of grapes. I take a grape off the thing. Why will I not fix the bunch? Because now the bunch has got less grapes on. The answer is that's not fixing it. There's no difference to me whether a bunch of grapes has grapes in it or not. So too, it makes no difference to me whether this hadas has berries on. I haven't actually fixed anything because I don't need it. It is a complicated point, but there are two completely different ways of understanding this Gemara. This is that takes us a little bit as to the understanding what is the het of Yom. You've got extra hadas. Okay. If the knot became undone on Yom Tov, you just put a string around it. In olden days, when you wanted to collect vegetables together, you just put a string around it and it would work. Why just put a string around it? Why not make a bow? Rather than Shabbos, Rabbi Yehuda holds that making a bow is as bad as making a knot. Do a proper knot, because Rabbi Yehuda holds you need a real knot, and if you can't do it, it's not yotze. We just had a few minutes ago, according to Rabbi Yehuda, a lulav without a knot is not a good. It says, well, Haitana somebody close to he agrees with him one way, and he disagrees with him in another way, and in one way he agrees with him that a bow is a knot, and that's why he doesn't allow you to do a bow. But another way he does not agree with him, that he doesn't insist on the knot, even if it's b'diavad, it's okay with being wrapped around. The Beis Yosef writes is from top Reish Aleph. The reason I mentioned it is because it's a halacha which some people are not even aware, that you have to have a double knot on your Aravanim. I talked about it a few days ago. It says the Beis Yosef, I'll prove it to you. Because the Gemara here talks about a situation where a knot became undone on Yom Tov. And the Gemara struggles with the solution. If you don't need a double knot, if all you need to do is just put it into what they call kosher klach, so what's the problem? What's the Gemara saying? Why does the Gemara just say put it inside one of these things? Is a raya that you need to have a proper double knot.
Wow.
So where should you put it? You should put it where you're going to hold it, right? That means you should put it where your hands hold, and it should include all three minim, the adasim, the aravas, and the lulav. Now there are many people, a lot of people you'll see, they just rely on the kosher klach, and they do not bother with a double knot. And the Mishnah Berurah already knew about this. Listen to Mishnah Berurah. The Masha Noyagin Oilam Shlo Lasis Kesha Eloisen Min Alule Lulav Kimin Beis Yad, make a glove out of the leaves of the lulav. They stick the lulav in it. Some say some hold that it's okay as or not. If you look at the Dish Mishnah, what they say is that the Eliashiv was very upset about this, and he held him. I read out through the words. How to find it? 11. What's going on here? 11. Here. Here, like this, like it's Kafachaim Kosav lechatchila nochanas is kesha. You should make a note. Because the Ashriyoish, Nisim Kaveretz, that those who use a kosher should at least make sure to add 2 knots, one on top of each other, to be Mekah in the mitzvah ka'alocha. Do you tell that to people, Shalom?
No.
No, why?
2 knots, 2 rings.
No, not 2 rings. One lulav leaf and a double knot on top of it. It doesn't look so pretty. In fact, someone said to me, why you do it, because the Mishnah says it's Tofresh Nun Aleph Sif Aleph, if you want to look it up. Because it's Hodo. So that doesn't look Hodo. It looks very funny to have a double knot. The answer is that Hodo is not what we decide is Hodo. Take a lulav leaf, I take a lulav leaf, wrap it around, and I make a double knot. Actually, some people do it. Some people do something. Okay, we'll stop here.
Inside the glove thing, and then you can't see it.
You have to tie. How do you make a double knot? Okay, it's nice to see you, Tony Necheski. I hope you can enjoy your thing. Have you got rid of all your lights?
I taped it over with some masking tape.